Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back. This is Sir Adrian here, filming the random events for our current game of Global War 1914 titled Operation Bersaglieri, where we will be going into the spring of 1917. So the war's coming along quite well. We're entering the fourth year of the conflict already, because in our timeline it started a bit early. South America, most nations there are still all neutral for the time being and have not decided to get involved. The Mexican Civil War has finally ended, with the revolutionaries defeating the Central Powers backed Federalists. And they are currently neutral once again. The Americans are increasingly dissatisfied with the Central Powers, in particular the German Empire, sinking their submarines and other such provocations. So they're massing their units for war. Things are pretty stable still on the Western Front. And the southern Italo-French frontier, where we have a joint Italian and Austro-Hungarian armies facing against the French, but the French, as I said, still valiantly holding on. The big shock is the German invasion of the British Home Isles. So the British are desperately trying to hold on and fight that off, so we'll see how that goes. Things are still fairly stable and haven't changed much in the Balkans. The Greeks are getting fairly concerned by events and potential Ottoman provocations, so may end up joining the war sooner rather than later. In the southern part of the African continent, aside from a few colonies that the French and British still hold, mainly the French, as well as in North Africa, the British have fared quite badly. L'État von Wolbeck and a lot of the other German troops, aided somewhat by the Italians, but for the most part, the Germans on their own have managed to take most of Britain's colonies in the southern part of the continent, with the Belgians and Portuguese still neutral in the war. The Ottomans are also threatening the British, as well as the Germans in Egypt and the Suez Canal, so not ideal. In Russia, not much has changed. The Russians are still valiantly holding on in their capital, Petrograd, and have reclaimed some of the land they lost in Finland, holding on in Moscow and in the east, but otherwise are quite hard pressed by the various central powered armies that have advanced quite far into Russia. Not all that ahistorical, aside from the Ottomans breaking through the Balkans. In that part, a lot of that, they've advanced a little bit further than they did historically, but not by much. But there are whispers of revolution, so it may be possible that something's a brewing within Russia. We shall see. And over in the Pacific, not much has been happening this game. The Japanese, as part of the Allies, have successfully taken German Shandong. While this, I think it might have been last year, but anyways, they've successfully taken German Shandong, and they're attempting to take some of the other German colonies, expand their influence in the region. And in China, the nationalist forces have amassed millions of troops, and the forces of Sun Yat-sen are doing quite well so far in unifying the country. So that'll surely continue on, but we'll see how that goes. As well as their forces having some success in sinking the final German cruiser raider. in the Pacific as part of the Allies. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So without further ado, let's get into the random events. So we'll start with the spring of 1917 for the East. So we got a 2. So 2 is U.S. readiness. So the USA receives 4 IPP from the bank and 2 free technology rolls this turn. So the USA was at 32 IPP. So they'll be at 36, and they'll immediately get 2 free tech rolls. So we'll go for wartime economy, and I think we'll go for defense in depth. So both are at a 7. So this gray dice here will be for wartime economy. The pink one will be for defense in depth, or purple rather. So defense in depth misses, but at a 12, we get wartime economy, and that one is completed. So that's great for the Americans. They can't collect it until they're at war, so it won't be this upcoming turn, but once they're at war, they'll be able to, so that's good for them. So that's for the East. Now we will go ahead and roll for the West. So for the West, we are going to get a 3. So Austro-Hungarian and German sailor revolt. So Austro-Hungarian and German surface warships can't move or attack this turn. Ships adjacent to a friendly major naval facility must immediately be marked with an import marker. Transports and submarines are not affected. Turn. So they can't move or attack this turn. So Austro-Hungarian and German surface warships, and they have to be marked in port. So the Austro-Hungarians, they only have their dreadnought that already is in port. I'm not sure why I don't have an import marker, but that's in port at the major shipyard in Austria. So that'll have to stay there. I won't be able to do any combat. And the Germans, I have them marked as the First Fleet. So it's only surface warships, and they do have a major port. I think it only said major port. Or sorry, friendly major naval facility. So they do have a friendly major naval facility over in the UK. That one's in Scotland, but they have one in the, not British Midlands, but Northern England. That's what I was looking for. So Northern England. So they will have to move in port there. So the submarines are fine, but they're going to have their 3 torpedo boat destroyers, their 4 pre-dreadnoughts, and their 4 dreadnoughts will all be in port for this turn and won't be able to attack. And they'll be in port, as I said, in Northern England. And then over on the other side, they have this other major naval facility. Those units were already in port, so the transports, they're already in port, but the torpedo boat destroyers that were already in port will have to stay in port and won't be able to come out of port this turn. So that's quite interesting. So that's it for the random events. And we will hand things off to the Germans and see how things progress in the upcoming season of 1917 or year. And actually, sorry, there is one more thing before I go. So it is a new season. Actually, sorry, there's two more things. My apologies, I'm missing all kinds of stuff. So Cuba is gonna align to the Americans. So Cuba just has, it's worth an IPP. So the USA is going to be at 35. And there was a militia there. So I'll place that off camera, but the Americans are going to get an extra militia. Aside from that, we are in a new season. So we do have to look at the fighters. So everybody, so the Germans are fine. They already have 1917 fighters. Everybody else has 1916 fighters. So Japan, I know, doesn't have any. I don't have any as the Russians. Austria-Hungary doesn't have any. Italy, I know, doesn't have any fighters. I don't believe the Ottomans do, so really, and I don't think the British do. Oh, the British do as well. So I had forgot to ask everybody this, but the British, the British, the French, or just the British and the French, essentially, they have to pay if they want to keep their fighters and upgrade them. 1 IPP per fighter. I was playing as the British, filling in for Seb Scullion. So I think I could make that call. He'd still have 30 IPP. I think I'd say he'd pay it. Why not? Just to. Actually, no, because it's not really gonna give. It's not gonna. They're not gonna be any use for him. If I'm being completely honest. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we will. So the British will pay the 2 IPP to keep their 2 fighters that they have. I imagine the French would want to keep theirs as well, so they'll pay the 2 IPP. So the British will be at 30 IPP. The French had 30 IPP. So they'll be at 28. So I'll go ahead and change that right now just before I forget. Put this here for now. So they'll be at 28 IPPs. Are. And as I said, the Germans are the only other one who have fighters on the board. But they don't have to pay because they already had 1917 fighters. There's no neutral additions that we have to add. But we do have to do something quite important. Aside from everything else that we've just done, and that is the Russian Revolution collapse rolls, which we have to start. So if we look over in the national reference sheet for Russia, so there we are. So it's not prohibited because we don't have Berlin, Vienna, West Hungary, or Constantinople. So we have a chance, guys. So it says Germany will roll a d12, but it'd be right now. So we'll go ahead and roll that. So on a roll of 12, Russia will collapse. And there are some modifiers. So it's -1 for each IPP producing territory Russia's gained. We haven't gained any. It's +1 for each IPP producing home territory Russia has lost. +1 for each previous roll. So just +1 for each IPP producing home territory we have lost. So we'll go ahead and do the roll to start. Okay, so that's a 5. So for each IPP producing territory we've lost, so that's the roll is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we're gonna collapse. 11, 12. Yeah, well, it goes above 12. So Russia will collapse. Yeah, so we are going to collapse. I think, in fact, actually... Well, actually, so we can administer everything else because we are playing with the Russian Revolution / Civil War expansion. So Germany wouldn't pick war. And in this case, it doesn't really make much sense for them to anyways. Because if they pick that, there's not going to be a Russian Civil War. So the Germans would pick peace. So if we're playing with the Russian Civil War expansion set, we continue to implement 1, 2, and 3 below. So this turn, I'm not going to be able to spend, lend, lease, or collect any IPP. That's phrased wrong, but collect any IPP. I'm not going to be able to attack this turn. I'm not going to be able to research technology or do diplomacy. I can continue to defend and do non-combat, which I'm probably not going to have much non-combat, maybe a little. So this turn, the Central Powers, you guys have to keep all units in Russia that started this turn in Russia. You have to do 1 mandatory offensive against Russia for at least 1 round to convince the Russians of their peace terms. At the beginning of the following calendar turn, before rolling for the random events, so next turn in the summer of 1917, before the random events, I'm going to transfer all my IPP that I have, which I believe is 12 or something like that, to Germany. The Central Powers are going to have to leave at least 1 land unit in every territory that was part of the Russian starting territories. There are other units, they can start moving them out of Russian home country if they wish. And then begin the Russian Civil War as well. So we'll have to set all that up once that happens. But for now, everything stays the same within Russia, aside from what I've read here. So that'll be it now for this current turn, and now we can hand things off to the German Empire. And may Stalin and Lenin lead us to victory, I suppose.